This is a true life story of the literal torture of my family at the hands of my very own father. These are my first memories of the cruelty that ensued. This doesn't mean these things only happened once. These are what you would call my firsts. I found myself sitting on the couch next to my father. He was a handsome man with a muscular build, 6 feet tall, dark blonde hair, and hazel eyes. My feet barely touched the end of the couch cushion. I was so little, so young. The sun was shining bright through the kitchen window. The sun was setting, and I knew that Mom would be home from work soon. Dad was obviously getting very agitated. He kept sighing abruptly while grinding his teeth. Then his foot started jiggling, at first a little bit, but with time it became faster and faster. Dad smoked cool cigarettes and was chain smoking one right after the other. I didn't know why he was getting so upset. It was quiet in the house. My brother Mark was in the back bedroom that he and I shared. Then Dad crushed out his cigarette and abruptly got up. He was headed towards the bedroom. I started to slide off the couch to follow him. Dad pointed at the couch and firmly stated, "Sit." He didn't have to yell at you. In fact, I don't think my father yelled that much. Whatever he said, you knew he meant business, and I didn't tempt fate. Dad closed the bedroom door behind him. Then I heard bumps and thumps, sounding like someone was being thrown around the room, being knocked to the floor. Then what sounded like to be slaps and belt strap sounds hitting flesh rang down the hallway. I sat there, drew my little legs in towards my chest. I started rocking back and forth while trying to plug my ears so I wouldn't hear the horrors that were transpiring. Then it became eerily quiet. No sounds whatsoever. My dad didn't come back out of the bedroom right away. I didn't know what he would do during those times, but my father could be ruthless and cruel. Dad came out to what sounded like was dragging something down the hallway. I jumped to the end of the couch and peeked around the corner to see what was going on. I saw my dad dragging my brother down the hallway like a rag doll. He dragged him into the bathroom. Mark didn't even make a sound. It was rare for him to make noise while being beaten. He knew his cries fell on deaf ears anyway. Dad came back out and sat down next to me. He immediately lit up a cigarette, breathing rather harshly like he had just run a 2K race. After a while, I began to get worried about my brother. He had not left the bathroom. An uncomfortable amount of time went by. I started to get worried about my brother and became a bit antsy. As my father was obsessively staring out the picture window, I started to slide to the end of the couch. I was going into that bathroom to check on my brother. Little by little, I slid towards the end of the couch. As soon as I could, I jumped off the couch. My dad grabbed for me. I felt his hand grab for my shirt, but I was running, breaking free from his grasp. He did not get off the couch to stop me, so I ran into the bathroom. There was something very heavy hanging on the back of the door. I pushed the door open, looking behind it. Hanging on the door was my brother. It looked as though he was strung up there by his shirt. I didn't notice anything else other than my brother's catatonic state. I ran to go get my mother. I heard her driving up the gravel driveway. Her windows were all down, and she turned off the radio when she saw me run outside to greet her. I can't imagine the panicked look on my face. I was yelling to her, "Daddy hurt Mark! Daddy hurt Mark!" She slammed the car into park, making it skid on the gravel a bit. Within seconds, she was out of the car and on her way into the house behind me. I led her to my brother, hanging there. She didn't even say anything. The shock on her face said it all. Mom struggled to get him loose from the hook. She was a petite woman around 5'3", maybe 110 or 20 pounds. She was a beautiful woman with auburn hair and gorgeous baby blue eyes. She had to grab his thighs and push him upwards, wiggling him off the hook. Once he was released, he collapsed into my mother's arms. She grabbed him and fell to her knees, hugging Mark close to her. He didn't hug her back. Instead, he laid there on her shoulder, his arms just hanging there while he was staring off into space. He didn't even really acknowledge that he knew we were even there. His eyes were red and swollen. There was blood in the corners of his mouth, and it was swollen too. Blood streaked the snot that had rested on his lip. I remember the blank look on his face and asked Mom if he was all right. She told me to go back out in the living room. As always, she would take care of Mark. I took one last look at Mark and slowly went outside, softly closing the door behind me. I scooted back up onto the couch next to my dad. Whatever Dad was mad about wasn't over. He hadn't worked it all out on Mark. That usually meant there was more to come, and it could get a lot worse. It just depended on who he was going to take it out on. Mom had taken Mark into the back bedroom and stayed with him for a while. That was infuriating my father. He did not like it when my mother paid attention to my brother. It was almost like he was jealous of my mom and brother's relationship, which was very special. Mark was the only boy out of 6 girls, and she cherished him. After a while, Mom came out of the bedroom. She went out into the kitchen, placing her purse and keys on the table. Then she started making dinner. She didn't utter a word to my father, or me for that matter. My father was still seething with anger. He kept staring at my mother, looking at her with a very mad face. She was trying to be very quiet, but any little noise bothered my father. If she clinked a glass, he would take a deep breath and exhale loudly through his nose, blowing cigarette smoke out of his nose and mouth like a dragon. I could tell that Mom was nervous. She kept looking back at my father, appearing intimidated and afraid. Dad finally walked up to her, demanding money. Mom worked cleaning houses and was paid by the job daily, so he knew she had money on her. She told him, "I don't have any money to give you." He grabbed her by the arm very forcefully, got in her face, and told her, "Give me some money now." Mom stood her ground. "I don't have it. I have to pay rent." Dad said through his teeth, "Give me some money," and he slapped her. Mom said no. Then he grabbed my mother by the hair and started slapping her in the face over and over. He kept slapping her until she finally relented. She said between slaps, all right, stop it." She was scared, reached into her pocket, and gave him some money. Dad snatched all the money out of her hand, and Mom said, "We have to have a place to live." He flipped a few dollars of what money he'd taken and threw it at my mother's feet. She squatted to pick up the money. Dad swung back, striking Mom on the side of her head, knocking her into the cabinets. She put herself upright, took the money, and put it in her pocket. Dad had walked away, grabbing the car keys off the table. Slamming the door behind him, he took the car, tearing out of the driveway, spitting stones all over the place. He wouldn't be back for a while. Usually he wanted money so he could go get drunk. My father was an alcoholic who would sometimes abuse drugs. Mom walked over and sat down next to me and asked me, "Are you all right?" I responded with yes. After all, I wasn't the one who had been beaten, so I was okay, right? Mom ran her fingers through her hair. Strands of loose hair laid in her fingers, evidently pulled out during the struggle. Mom sat there for a few minutes, rubbing her head. She looked so tired and downtrodden, her face red and swollen. She looked at me and said, "Don't worry, he didn't get all of it." Then she got up and went into our bedroom and stayed there for a while with Mark. The memory felt so real. I could smell Dad's cigarette smoke and his Old Spice cologne. I remember my brother's face with that haunting look. I was only 3 or 4 at the time, and this memory is forever seared into my brain. This is my first real memory of the abuse that happened, and more was to come. So much more. Now, there's a few problems with that memory besides my father's psychopathic behavior. My mother and I believe that this is actually 2 different incidents, because when I'm sitting by my father on the couch, I could have sworn it was winter outside. The whole part up to where I find him on the back of the bathroom door is one memory, and when I go get my mother from the car is another. The reason I even questioned it was that I told her I could have sworn when I came out to get you it was summer. Mom had the windows open, there was grass on the ground. Then when I returned to the bathroom with my mother, my brother's actually hanging on the left wall between the bathtub and what I believe was a linen closet by his waist. He was bent in half, just loosely hanging there in a catatonic state. Later in life, I asked my mother if Dad had done this to Mark more than once, and she verified he in fact had. Both were at the same home at the E Road address. She told me that the first time he did it, she became irate and threatened to have him arrested, stating he could have killed my brother. He supposedly stated to her that he would never kill my brother, but he may have a happy accident and become a vegetable. Then she could baby him every day for the rest of her life. He asked her how she would feel watching her son grow into a useless piece of flesh. She said he seemed so pleased with himself, but she was terrified. My father had already tried to drown one of my sisters as a baby. I'll discuss what I know about that at a later time. I have never openly talked about my childhood before. All I've ever said was my father was an abusive alcoholic. Not even my children know of the horrors I witnessed as a child. I never wanted them to know such people existed, nor that it was my father who acted out those atrocities. I don't even know if you'll believe me. Many did not believe us as kids, and the horrendous treatment continued. But sadly, they're all true. All of it. The pictures that are being used were free on the internet. They have absolutely no affiliation with me. Thank you for listening to my heartbreaking childhood memories.